this video after my first trip because I learned a lot. There were many things that I designed for my kayak. There were some things that I bought in anticipation of when I was going to take it out. And I think what happens is, while we wait for the kayak to get to our house, we buy things and then you realize that, you know what, they don't work the way they're supposed to, or they're not ideal. I had a scupper hole kayak cart that actually went through the scupper holes and supported the weight underneath. I decided to change and modify that cart because of several reasons. First and foremost, I had a subscriber that told me he owned the same kayak cart and it damaged the scupper hole. Now, I don't know about you guys, but these kayaks are an investment. They're not cheap. And I took that as something for me to change because I don't want to take a chance in damaging this or avoiding the warranty because I cracked the scupper hole. So what I decided to do was I cut down the actual scupper hole supports and decided to make the cart to look differently, where it would support it from underneath and not the scupper holes, just to protect the hull of the kayak. The second thing that I went ahead and I actually modified was my anchor line float. The way I designed it before, I used two carabiners. The first carabiner would hold on to the kayak trolley, and the second carabiner on the bottom would actually hold the amount of line that I would let out. On the trip that I had this weekend, I realized that some of that line ended up coiling off and it ended up bunching up within the carabiner. So I decided to take a rope cleat that I had already and I zip tied it right onto the anchor float. And I think that that's gonna be a better design. So I'm gonna give that a shot. I made a fish stringer with a pool noodle, some orange rope, and at the end of that orange rope, I tied a metal skewer, a barbecue skewer, and I cut it down. I bent the circle down a little bit so that it could go cleanly through the gills and out their mouths without having to come in contact with them. Then at the end of that, the same loop that holds the skewer would be the same loop that I would actually tether right onto this pad eye with a carabiner. The other change that I made, or modification that I made to the kayak, as you guys seen before, the pedal drive has an issue where the whole shaft jumps out. When I first went on my trip, I took a V-shaped insert, foam insert with me. And even though that helped, it still popped out. One of the things that I did was I designed another foam insert, more in the shape of the pod that would go in there to give it support. And I think that that's something that I think we all can use. HooDoo comes up with a fix with that for that issue. This is the redesigned cutout that I made, and it seems to hold out pretty stable. Again, this is in ideal conditions and not in the water, but it might just hold me off until I get the replacement part. Another thing that I noticed when I went on the water, the actual straps that come with the pedals, the Velcro straps that are adjustable, they kept getting in my way. Either me being able to put my feet inside, or I was wearing at the time water shoes and they kept snagging onto the bottom of this because the straps off. And I think that the design is not only cleaner, but I think it allows your feet to clamp on easier without having to navigate through the holes. The other thing that I did not include, but I want to mention, is the bumper guard. I think it's a bumper fishing ruler that slides. I went ahead and I put markings on the fish and the size limit that you're supposed to be able to keep legally here in New York. I know in like areas down south in Florida and Texas, you guys have a variety of fish, maybe 15 varieties of fish to catch, all with different size limits or slots. Here in New York, is not as much, but I wanted to be able to indicate that on the bumper, and at the same time, like a fish, like a striped bass that has a slot, I was able to put the slot and just put striper, so that it takes all the guesswork out, or me having to look at my phone to verify, oh, what's the size limit on that? So I think that's kind of helpful. Another thing to mention also is tether everything on your kayak. Thank God on my first trip I didn't lose anything in the water, but I have my fish grabber, my fish hook remover, my pliers, all tethered to these pad eyes. I think there's 4 of them on the kayak that come already pre-installed. So do that and save yourself a lot of glue. Some items I don't tether on the kayaks, like the fishing knife and the grabber, because they actually float. So if I do lose them, I could oar right to them. The other thing that I want to mention really quick, I carry my kayak plain, without the pedal drive, just like you see it, on top of my car. So when it comes time to reassembling everything, what I realized helps in setting the seat back up is to label the actual bolts that go on each side of the kayak. So I label them 1 through 4, starting on the left side with being number 1 and then going clockwise. To me, I think that kind of makes setting up the kayak when I get to the spot that much quicker. These are some of the tips that I just came across, some ideas that I've worked on, some ideas that I had to improvise after being on the water. I hope that they're helpful. I hope they keep you safe, and you guys have a great day.